All right, thank you. So this is about everybody's favorite topic in the DevOps world, compliance. It's actually one of my favorite. I've been working for regulated agencies for quite a while, so I've come to embrace and enjoy compliance. So when it comes to compliance, Flosum really is focused on helping you make, to get the compliance and to keep all your compliance and regulatory needs up to date. There's many different ways we do that, but basically, the compliance that we follow, as you see in this chart here, where we do the whole process. So we'll start with the ideation, which is creating your requirements, gathering those, putting them into user stories, tracking the user story with the components that are being worked on, developing the feature, having the code reviewed, doing different testing, deploying it throughout your organization, and making sure it's committed to your version control system so you have that history. And along the way, logging everything, making sure everything you do, the who, the what, the when is all tracked. And then Salesforce being 100%, Flosum being 100% in Salesforce allows you to easily report on all of that. We give you many ways you can report on that. So again, making it easy for you to have the reports and the information you need when it comes down to the audits for the compliance. So we come up with, the 5 A's of, in this case, SOX compliance. You can see those listed here, and I'll briefly touch on a few of those, how we enable those, and then I'll show you in our demo exactly what we do to make sure you can get all these different sections taken care of. So the first one being access control. Obviously, being 100% in Salesforce, we support the full Salesforce security model and all of the features that it has to provide. And we actually allow you to even extend our tool if you really need to drill down even more. Primarily around segregating duties. Compliance in general is making sure that people do what they're supposed to do, not do what they're not supposed to do, and logging everything. So we make it very easy on many different levels to ensure that specific users can only do specific activities within the Flosum solution, such as only, have a designated release manager and a backup. So they're the only people who can deploy your changes to a production org. And then from all the different other activities, if you want, you can go down and control who can do what for all the lower activities we have. As I mentioned, auditing, everything is audited. All your versions are captured and available for review at any given time. All of your changes, when you make changes to components in the process of deploying them, we keep the original version and the new version, so you have that history as well. We have a comprehensive code review and approval. So you can guarantee that your code has been reviewed and signed off of before it's been deployed. It's a quality gate, so until you reach that approval, it cannot be deployed. I mentioned the reporting, the analytics. As I said, everything is a Salesforce object, so very easy to report on. And then again, back to the architecture, I mentioned how you can use all the Salesforce security pieces, but also you can extend that. And when you do extend it, we in our upgrade tool, we have a facility in there where you can specify what you have modified. So when we upgrade it, you won't overwrite your changes and have to put them back into your tool every time you do an upgrade. So now let's go in and see how we support compliance in the Flosum solution. All right, let's close this. Bring up my Flosum. So this is Flosum. As you see, 100% in Salesforce. We give you a quick overview of everything that is being worked on here. Now, compliance starts at the org stage. So we allow you to really specify who can do what activities in each individual sandbox, test org, and production org you have. And these are individuals, so you can assign them per specific org type. So for example, we'll look at our production org and how I would set up segregation of duties there. So we have our org permissions section here. We provide these 4 roles in addition to what Salesforce provides, strictly for your Flosum users and what they can do with Flosum to my production org. So I would have all of my developers typically have this view only role. This allows them to look at the code in production and do comparisons with what they're trying to deploy, but they can't make any changes to it. They cannot merge anything. They can't deploy it. It's strictly read only in there. Now, the developer role normally I wouldn't have in a production org, but this is the role I would use if I wanted to segregate my lower org. So if I wanted to have specific users assigned to specific sandboxes and test orgs, I can use this developer role to facilitate that. The validate only controls who can run standard Salesforce validations against this org. And of course, the release manager is the only person who can deploy code to this. Now, you can't have multiple people in here, so you can have a backup release manager if needed. But again, once you put one role in here, you have to specify everything. Otherwise, if you leave it wide open, everybody can do everything. So we strongly recommend coming up with a security model that makes sense for how you're going to be doing your deployments. Another thing I've mentioned is the auditing, tracking everything that is done. We give you full deployment history to this org, in every org. This link will give you a record of all the components that were updated during this deployment, showing you what were updated, what were deleted, what were created new. And if for some reason it did fail, we'll give you a log of that issue that caused the failure, whether it was a permissions issue or a missing dependency or something, allowing you to correct that and move it forward. Now, another thing we do at the org level, part of your compliance may be that you want to ensure that all of your code changes now go through your CI/CD process and nobody makes changes directly in your production org. So we have an audit trail that we've developed that's much more granular than the Salesforce audit trail. You can use this to monitor what is going on for changes in, for example, this production org, and then we'll highlight them based on what we find. So we'll start off with automated changes. These are done by Flosum. These are good things we want to see, but then you'll also see manual changes in here. So our policy is we don't want any manual changes in here. So, Jean as the admin can go in and see that I am working in here making changes, so she can address it by changing my access so I no longer have the ability to make these changes, thereby enforcing that everything goes through the CI/CD process. So now when the auditors come in and they want to make sure we're not making changes here, I can show them this audit trail and they'll see that everything is done audited by Flosum, or if it was done by a Salesforce process, or whatever the case is. So from the org level, that's how we do, again, most of our tracking. Now we also have the ability to do similar things at the branch level. So in Flosum, a branch is a deployment record. So I will show you a branch. Let me go to my demo. So again, in the branch, we'll show you full deployment history. So again, similarly to what you see in the orgs, this will show you everywhere a branch has been deployed to in those same logs, whether it passed or failed and with the components. So you can see I can show you here that this one branch was deployed through my 3 test orgs, has gone to my production org, and also was back promoted to my sandboxes to keep everything in sync. So all of my changes are now in my sandbox so I can work with them. So a full overview of everywhere my components in this branch has gone. And then we also give you a nice little state diagram to sort of visualize that as well. So you can see where the components came from, where they are, and everywhere they've gone. And we show you using these colors, whether they are in sync or out of sync. So if the components have changed from when they were last deployed, et cetera. So you get a real easy way to see what your components look like. Now, when it comes to tracking with user requirements, we integrate with many different ALM solutions. I have an example of Jira here, but we support Azure DevOps, ServiceNow, Agile Accelerator, many different packages for tracking your requirements across your Flosum environment. We have full 2-way synchronization. So what you would do is, in this case, we would install a package specifically for Jira that will set up the integration between Jira and Flosum. Once it's installed, you would point it to your Jira installation. You would determine first what projects you want to have available to Flosum, because you may have more than your Salesforce projects in there. Then you determine, what fields you want to have synced bidirectionally. So whenever any of these fields change in my Jira instance, they will be updated in Flosum automatically. And then we can also create a workflow in Jira with specific triggers we can import into Flosum. So when I deploy this to QA, this will automatically update the status to say deployed to QA. Or if I deploy it to production, I can close a ticket, whatever I want to. I can change assignees, whatever I want to do is part of this. So now the 2 systems are linked together. Anytime I do activities in Flosum, I do not have to remember to go to Jira and update the status. So it'll always be in sync. And I can also take the components that are being deployed in here, and I can have that fed to Jira as well. So I have true bi-directional tracking of the two different systems. So now selecting a Jira ticket is very, very simple. We go in and we click on the search Jira issue. We're going to do a real-time search into your Jira organization. It'll come back with what it finds to match. I can click on the link, and the link will show us the ticket, what the details are, and I can determine if I want to select that and have it track with this particular branch in Flosum. And again, at any given time in Flosum, I can click on this particular link and go right into Jira and see the ticket as well. So a couple different ways I can see the details of that ticket. The last thing we do is we allow you to even create a ticket from here. So if you find something in your activity that needs to be done when you do this, you can go in and just click on Create Jira Ticket. You select the project you want to tie this to, what the issue type is, and then you specify all the information you want to capture here. So once you click Save, after you filled it out, that ticket will be created in Jira and it'll be available for you to then link to this or use wherever else you want to do. So that's an overview of how we do things at the branch level. We also have the repository. So if you need to show complete history of everything that's gone on, you can go in and look at any of your components. Oops, see that my security is working. So I don't have the branch permission. So I've put a permission in here where I cannot go in and look at the repository. So that's actually showing you the security in action. Now, a couple other things we have. If you need to show changes between your orgs, we have a comparison tool where we can go in and basically compare snapshots, sandboxes to production, whatever I want to do. So I'm going to show you a quick comparison of a sandbox to my production org. And I'm going to use a snapshot for speed. Then I can choose, I want to look at specific component types or all components. And this will come back and show us what we have for differences between the two. So again, I can do this between test orgs. If I have multiple production organizations, I can do this between production orgs to see what the differences are. So it'll come back and show us that there are 69 components different between what's in my sandbox and what's in production. I can then go in and look at the differences. If I want to, I can select multiple components. I can add those to a branch. So for example, in this Apex trigger, you'll see that all the code is actually in my production org. I'm missing it in my sandbox. So I can very easily use this to get that down there, or I can do a comparison to see what the differences are if I need to do any reporting on that. So many ways you can see the differences in your code and make sure that everything is in sync or make it very easily into sync. Other than that, if you need any custom business level approvals, you can add approvals anywhere in here you want to by creating a standard approval. Any specific workflows you may want to add to the Flosum solution, you can do as well. I said it before, we fully support you extending and customizing this to really make this the solution that you need it to be. Any questions on how Flosum works for compliance and regulatory issues? Okay. I will go back to the chat and then back to you, Jean.
Sure. Thanks, John. So just to recap, kind of what John talked about is there's minimal admins that have access to production. So you guys have total control over that. You've got control over the changes and are able to see invisibility into all the changes that have been made. And we talked a little bit about the 5 A's to ensure compliance. So access controls, auditing, analytics, approval process, and the architecture.